Hey everyone, welcome back to Attacking Third. USA get the 3-1 win over Iceland in their first match back since winning gold at the Paris Olympics. Let's talk a little bit about specifically the first half. US go into halftime up a goal thanks to Alyssa Thompson in the 39th minute. The 19-year-old gets her first international goal. There was a lot that came from this goal specifically. Darian, can you break it down for us? I love when we get
I
to
can
ask you to do
break it down.
this.
Alyssa Thompson is a beast. Um, what I love about this is she gets isolated 1v1. I think it's Lindsay Horan who lays the ball off to her. She faces up, sees she's one-on-one with a defender, does a little shake and bake, has this perfect touch over to her right, dips her left shoulder, puts it to her right, has another little touch and bends it far post. It's a
Woo.
brilliant finish. Shake and bake Alyssa Thompson. But I love this because it's exactly what we've been seeing her do with club, with Angel City. You've heard her talk about it in interviews where she's like, "Hey, I'm working with Kristen Press in her kind of Kristen Press era goals." That's what we just saw is so Kristen Press coded. The face up, quick little touches, dip inside and whip it far post with so much finesse. And I love that we got to see that. It's just another element to her game. But again, it's the celebrations for me.
Yes.
It was so freaking
Yes.
cute and
Yep.
it showed all of the hard work and blood, sweat, and tears she's put into this moment, and she finally gets it after at least, I think you said 10 months of her not being with the national team. It's so
Filthy.
deserved.
It was filthy. I loved it. I love how you're mentioning the ways of the growth. And I think that's what was so special about this performance tonight from Alyssa Thompson is that we are watching it in real time. It's like, oh, that's development, baby. That's what that's called. And it's like you saw this sort of extra level that she had on the pitch tonight. And it didn't matter which side she was bringing it from. She was bringing it 100% on this side and 100% on the other side. And Emma Hayes in the build up to these friendlies has chatted about that, about what she wants to see from players, and the ones especially that did not get named to that Olympic roster, what they were tasked with, because it's ultimately like you're kind of like telling these players a little bit that they're fired. It's like you did not make this roster, but here's
Yep.
what I need you to work
Yeah.
on. And I think for such a young player, that could be a pendulum. You can either take it one way or the other. You can let yourself get really, really low, or you could be Alyssa Thompson and do what you did tonight. It was incredible performance. Loved the goal.
Alyssa Thompson at 19 years old, she becomes the fourth teenager to score in this calendar year for the US women's national team for the first time since the year 2000. That is absolutely crazy. Olivia Moultrie, Jaden Shaw, Lily Johannes are also names on that list, and Alyssa Thompson gets her etch her name into it. When they on the broadcast, when Thompson scored and they were like, "This is her first international goal," I didn't know that.
Me
Like,
neither. I was like, "No, she
are you
scored like 6
sure?
or 7 goal." No, it was her first goal. I'm glad I wasn't the
Crazy.
only one perplexed by that
Nah.
statement, but it's true.
I was a little perplexed by that. Maybe we shouldn't admit that. We should know those things, but I didn't know that just because of how how many times she had been called up before. She was at the
Mhm.
World Cup in 2023, and it was different. And this was a different Alyssa Thompson that we got to see tonight. But I think it's really interesting that she started the first half and started the game on the right side, but the goal ends up coming when she switches to the left side. And she was able to drive at the defender, shake and bake, and set it up on her right foot and go herself. The first 30 minutes of this game, Thompson was getting the ball and creating chances down the right flank, sending crosses in and having opportunities, but they weren't connecting with anyone. It was almost like the front line for the US was off in moments. And in the first, I mean, this goal took until 40 minutes into the match, the 39th minute for the US to score. And there was a lot of patience at time from the US in their attack to find the extra pass instead of a shot or a cross, finding the option that could be better, constant movement off the ball, overlapping. There were so many times when Jenna Neiswanger pushing up higher got the ball, and I thought, send the cross in. There is Lynn Williams waiting on the back post. Alyssa Thompson is there, or even Lindsay Horan was going to whip it in, and they didn't. They found that extra person, um, which led to Iceland out shooting the United States in the first 25 minutes, 5-3, 2-1 shots on target. So, how do you rate, Sandra, the level of patience that the U.S. had versus having a bit more urgency to create more chances and force Iceland to make saves in net.
Yeah, I'm not gonna lie. I was looking for that response. I think probably during that really early corner kick opportunity that Iceland had, and it was a little too close for comfort. I think for some folks and some of us watching, and I had that feeling where I was just like, "Geez, like this set piece defending, like something about the set piece defending is something that is still sort of following this USWNT around." Like check that out, put that on the checklist of things that they're probably going to work on throughout this international window. And the other one is perhaps some of that transition defense, because I think we saw the struggle in that throughout some of this game, despite some of the numbers that you just ran down. It was a game plan that was effective for Iceland in the sense that they were executing it well. Obviously, it didn't show in the final scoreline, but there were obvious stretches of time throughout this match where maybe you can point this and to say in terms of the momentum swings, which maybe there's not a stat for that, but as far as the momentum swings, it felt kind of even.
What should have been better in the first 30, 40 minutes for the US side, Darian?
It's difficult to say what should have been better because I realize we have to take into account these are all players that have been with their respective club teams. The stakes are very high. I mean, think about playing for Angel City where you haven't really been able to breathe. You've kind of put yourself in this position in the NWSL season where it's do or die every single game. It's all gas, no brakes, and it hasn't panned out. Every player is at a different level or at a different confidence level with their club team. So I expected it to be a little janky going into this first half, which I think we saw a little bit of rust working through those partnerships with each other, trying to see who's on the same page right now, which is really difficult to get into. I think what we should focus on is that they got into it. As the game went on, they found their groove. They started to plug holes. But I really like that Iceland caused them so many issues in the back, exposed this huge gap that no team has between Niswanger and Gurma.
Huge.
There were times where the back line looked all out of sorts, and we typically don't see teams take advantage of it. And those are big lessons for the US that need to happen for this to be maintained being the number one team in the world. But I just like that the US finally gained confidence, looked and exposed what Iceland was giving them. I just wish it happened maybe more so in the run of play, which was the same criticism we had going into the Olympics.
Yeah, the two notes I have for Iceland, 22nd minute, there was a corner kick for Iceland where it was constant waves of pressure. There was 2 or 3 chances for Iceland to create chances on goal, and the US got exposed. They were pulled apart defensively. It wasn't the typical defensive organization lockdown defense that we see from the United States, from Alyssa Nair, from Naomi Gurma, the other center back in there, Emily Sonnet. Is there anything you can point to, Sandra, as to why we didn't see excellent defense from the US when we're used to seeing that?
Yeah, I just think again, I can't give enough credit to Iceland. They're in form. I mean, we're not talking so much about their rosters and their starting lineup either when we were in this episode, but I mean the 23 players that called into this international window are the bulk of them, the majority of them are the players that were responsible for getting the team through qualifications for next year's Euro. So these are players that we're talking about finding moments of cohesiveness. Iceland's looking for that too. Not only are they looking for that, they're building on that. They have they have built that, and they are currently trying to build on that. And I think that showed today. And I think when we're looking at this second half in particular, well, maybe Lisa, how you're framing it, like maybe what could have they have done better in the first 30 minutes, and how did that look going into the second half? I mean it continued a little bit into the second half because that's how that equalizer comes for Iceland. It is a moment of a breakdown, for a fail of recognition for the transitional defense by the USWNT. Like, and that's what it's going to take. It's when you're talking about transitional defense, like it's not just Alyssa Nair and the possible 3 or 4 that are in front of her. When you have a team that's going to hit you like that, transitional defense has got to be everybody going. So
Yeah.
it's not, when we look at the replay on this equalizer, we see the breakdown in recognition by Haran, and essentially Coffee trying to make her recover, and then you see a very dejected Rose Lavelle. Like, it's in her own body language. how she wasn't able to sort of close that space, and this shot comes from distance. So we're not saying anything new here. People could just go look at the replay and sort of see the body language and how that was a breakdown there.
10 minutes on either side of the half, Iceland had really dangerous opportunities. There was the really good moment just before Alyssa Thompson gets the opening goal for the U.S. in the 34th minute for Iceland, where a slip ball comes through. Jenna Neiswanger is pulled a little bit out of position. She's pressed too high, and it's a backdoor cut behind her, and it's an awesome look on goal. Should have been struck better for Iceland, and that would have been a goal, hands down. Darian,
Yeah.
you rolled your eyes at that. You would have finished it.
That's right, Darian, get out
I
there.
mean, I wasn't gonna say that, but if we want to say that, no, I could put on my cleats again. No, it was that was the
One-day
moment I was saying,
contract.
yeah, just one, just give me one, Emma, come on. That was the moment I was saying where it was one of those exposing times where we don't see the US get taken advantage of, or somebody really thread the ball through one of the weaknesses, where Jenna Neiswanger is also learning a lot. She's still a really young player. She's thinking the player sitting wide. She doesn't look over her shoulder to mark where the player is. She sneaks in and she has 2 to 3 seconds for Jenna Neiswanger to look over at her, and she gets into that massive gap between her and Germa. And yes, that forward is going to want that ball back, because that is what you sit and train. You have high repetitions of as a winger, as a number 9, those slip balls forward, how you put it in front of your body, how you get it going towards the near post so that you can slot it far post. It was not a great finish, but I think it put US on their heels a little bit, where's the defensive principles that we're used to seeing? I think it humbled this back line a bit. It humbled the midfield a bit to not leave so much space open and not leave those passing lanes open into the Icelandic front line. But I like that we got some challenges. I like that we're getting that the US is getting exposed a little bit. This is how this team grows. This is how this team gets better. So when we do face teams that will finish those opportunities, they can plug those holes sooner.
The question marks continue to come for Iceland, forcing them on the United States, because 56th minute into the second half, Iceland ends up getting an equalizer 1-1. It's Selma Sol Magnusdóttir, a strike from distance that is absolutely beautiful. Absolutely beautiful. Iceland also had a chance about 5 minutes earlier in the 49th minute, a set piece that was serviced into the box. And this is the moment where, heading into halftime, US is up 1-0. Emma Hayes doesn't make any changes at halftime. Iceland rotates some players in, but then Iceland scores this equalizer. The last time that Iceland has scored on the United States was the 2011 Algarve Cup. The US end up winning 4-2. But that is the last time, 2011. And this scores in an equalizer in the 56th minute. Where was the breakdown, Sandra? You touched on it a little bit before, but what really happened in this moment? Was it bad defense by the US or really good offense by Iceland?
Lisa, it's like you want me to change my last name to like Herrera's daughter. Like you keep coming at me with like the Iceland, and I'm just like, girl, this is why. But no, I'll keep it going. I'll keep giving the respect to Iceland. But yeah, I just to echo my sentiments from earlier. This is what we saw from Iceland. They were bringing the game during stretches of the match to the United States, and they weren't intimidated by getting in and or out, fluctuating in or out in terms of the numbers in various thirds of the pitch. And I think they knew that they had to maybe challenge a little bit and their high line against the United States, almost kind of daring the United States a little bit at times. And I think to get those moments, to get those very specific transitional moments where they can go and quickly counterattack. And we saw that in this one. We saw the breakdown happening out wide. We saw the ball get recycled around. We saw the failure to of that recognition, that defensive awareness for the trio of midfielders that we saw out on the pitch. And I think it's maybe 50-50. Lisa, honestly, there's two teams out there. So it's a combo of the breakdown and the failure to recognize that transition to defensive moment, and it's an absolute credit. I mean, when you make a finish like that against Alyssa Nair from distance, you absolutely have to give credit.
Yes,
So it's a
I
good
agree
50-50.
with you, Sandra. Yeah, I agree with you that the strike is good, but there was no pressure on it. There was absolutely no pressure.
None. Window was pretty wide open.
And that's bad.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I agree with you both. Having too much time on the ball, to me, the concern here is the lack of really, really fundamental defensive principles. Somebody 1-2s around you, you follow your runner. Lindsay Horan, that's your runner. You have to follow and block space. You don't have to be on that defender, but you have to block the passing lane back into her. And that's how the combination started. You see Rose Lavelle sprinting her ass off to go and try to cover. She overcommits because she's trying to make up ground. But that happens all over the pitch. But in that defensive third, those are moments where it cannot happen. It's the U.S. women's national team. It can't happen. And credit to Magnusdottir for a little shake and bake herself, puts it on her left
Mhm.
with a beautiful curler far post past the legendary Alyssa Nair. You have to pat yourself on the back for that. But I think maybe we saw so much focus on the US having majority of possession since Emma Hayes has come and coached the US women's national team, so much focus on going forward that we finally saw a little bit of a breakdown where, that maybe this does need to be fine-tuned. Maybe we need to get back to basics defensively because teams see this. We
It
see
was
you.
it was
We know we
almost a
can break you
mental
down.
lapse defensively. That's what it was.
Yeah.
It's not like Haran doesn't know that she has to track her
Oh,
defenders.
yeah.
How much do you think Alyssa Nair got on them after that goal happened?
Oh, I'm sure a ton. Keepers lose their
Oh
minds in
boy.
situations like that where it is basics. We all know this. We've all been trained this since you were in college, especially since you've been pro. This is the expectation to have these basic fundamentals that you do. I doubt we'll see it again anytime soon unless it's some immaculate trick
Mhm.
play where there's like a back heel and a flick and a nutmeg and someone shakes and bakes and
But that's
finishes it.
different. That's different. That's not what this situation was. It was just poor
I know, but I don't think we'll see it
Yeah.
again.
Yeah,
We're an Iceland recap show now. It's Carlin. It's Carlin's daughter. It's Jenkins' daughter. Herrera's daughter.
We're in Reykjavik, guys. Woo!
let's go. Let's get it. What do they drink there? What's their big thing? White Russians? Is that what they drink there? Come on, let's
Let us
go.
know in
No
the chat.
idea.
I guess.
Learn
What do y'all
something new,
drink?
though.
What do they drink in Iceland? Find out and let us know in the chat.
A lot of fresh fish. Well, Iceland, they got the equalizing goal in the 56th minute. Selma Sol Magnus' daughter. And then some changes happened for the U.S. Some rotations. Some players made their debut.